and here it is. So you're a parent. We're going to call you CeCe because I want to keep anonymity here. You've heard about me on LinkedIn. Great. So glad you did. I have a lot of contacts and followers there. So you've got a child in this kind of 10 to 13 age range. Very important age range. It's kind of the last window of opportunity where you can really shift the child's direction. So let's really pay close attention. No other kids in the home, so only child. He's in a traditional school, or she. Did we find the gender? I don't think we did. So, okay. You think that the parent and child has a ton of influence over their lesson subjects and learning experience. Now, I question that because you're in a traditional K-12 school. Here's how I define this. When your child goes to school, do they get to decide what they're going to learn about? Do you play any role, parent, of deciding which books, what subjects? If your child's really curious about a subject or a concept, are they free to continue to learn about that subject or concept, or do they have to do that on their own time outside of traditional, learning hours? If that's the case, then really we're talking about a child that really doesn't have a lot of autonomy or authority, and likewise for the parent. So first question I have here is really around, are we talking about the same thing here? Second is, now we talk about the things your children are interested in, your child is interested in. So again, how much of these subjects does a child get to explore in their traditional learning day? Probably pretty little. That means someone else is making decisions about what the child will learn, which means the child will likely be disengaged, which is a tremendous problem that we're having in education right now. It's probably one of the biggest problems. So again, how much areas in their area of curiosity? That's the key theme I'm trying to ask and try to get at with these questions. You say some. Again, I would probably challenge that and say probably not much, but we won't quibble about the details here. Who should be primarily responsible for the child's learning? Now, a little bit of a trick question. The earlier or the younger the child, absolutely, the parent is the primary responsible party. I ask this because some people think the school or the school district or the teacher, no. Under no circumstances are those the primary responsible party. It's the parent first, and as the child ages up around this 10, 11, 12, 13 age range, it really should be shifting to the child. So the child becomes the person who is actually shaping and directing their learning. And again, we can talk more about that and why that matters. It matters because it creates a child with high degree of engagement and responsibility for the learning, rather than saying, well, I'll learn what you tell me to learn. That is a passive learner. And in this 21st century, as things are really heating up, as change is becoming normal, you've got to be a young person that's really able to direct their own learning. All right, let's keep going. This is going to be 4 hours long if I don't hurry this up. How does your child respond to failure? This is a bit of a problem. Failure is really the currency of the 21st century. You cannot produce anything without a lot of failure. And so if you're avoiding failure, which again, traditional education teaches kids to avoid failure. Every bad grade you get is a problem, when it's really an opportunity to find out what you don't know. So these are the challenges about how different the 21st century model of education is with what a young person actually needs. Is the child growing more curious as they get older? Somewhat, yes. That's fantastic. That's a good sign. And it probably has more to do with what you're doing than probably what's happening in the school. Is the child motivated to get good grades? Another trick question. If the child's interested in getting good grades, here's what happens. It happens all the time, and we never really talk about it. Shortcuts. They take shortcuts. If I'm looking for a good grade, then I'm going to take a shortcut to get the grade, and I care less now about the learning and more about the grade. This, again, is a 21st century catastrophe, because learning is all that matters in the 21st century, and grades will be obsolete. In fact, they're obsolete now, but they're going to be even more obsolete, because who cares what your grade was if you didn't learn the content? That's the real problem here. And so if your child's interested in grades, they become a grade grubber. That means I'll do whatever it takes to get the grade, even if it means, in some cases, cheating or shortcuts. Child's relationship with technology, production, fantastic, more on that side. This is another one of those catastrophe moments in education that technology is not viewed with hyper suspicion. If your child's producing, great. If they're consuming, real problem. How much do you expect society to change in the next 10 years? Unimaginable. So this is the right answer. So obviously, parent, you're aware of some of the dynamics that are at play here, particularly with technology. That's great news because your child is going to be really in the grips of a technological revolution that we really can't anticipate. But we do know that they're going to have to learn differently than what we did in the past, and what I did, what you did, what your grandparents did. And so that's what I'm advocating, that we really think about this long and hard. All right, next up. Here's now we're getting into the social and kind of the relational aspects of the child. If they have a personal problem, how many people would they feel comfortable asking for help? If this number is low, this is a real problem. And I can speak from experience on this. This child needs to have many more young or people who are competent and capable that they can approach about their emotional health, their what they're learning, et cetera. So this is like probably the number one thing I would encourage you, parent, to pay really close attention to and begin developing a part of a learning plan associated with this. How much one-on-one time do they have with a caring, competent adult? 4 to 6 hours a week is great. You want to always push higher on this. Again, this is where education happens. It happens in small batches between small numbers of people in a conversation that has nothing to do with school, but has everything to do with education. That is where the learning and the most important learning actually takes place. Okay. How aligned are you with your significant other in the educational goals of your children? So 3 is a problem. The most important piece here is alignment between the spouse or the significant other, because otherwise the child now gets mixed messages, and oftentimes will play parents against each other, not intentionally, but let's be honest. If the child gets, let's make something up. If the child gets cake every day for dinner with dad and broccoli every day with dinner for mom, child is going to start to gravitate towards wanting more dinners made by dad. That is a natural human nature dynamic, and it's also going to put mom on the ropes and defensive as mom and dad are trying to hash out how we're going to find some agreement here. So in education, it becomes even more important because we're really talking about the shaping of the child and their mind and their way of thinking and their worldview. Okay, that question was not answered. Which would you prefer in the child? Critical thinker, fantastic. Which about here? Curious or straight A student? Again, mom, I'm going to really press on you here. I hope you hear this in the spirit it's intended. A child that is pursuing grades is a child that almost inherently is more interested in the grade than in the learning. That's the problem with how school is structured. So I can give you examples. Let me give you a quick one. There was a young woman I worked with. She was super interested in tanks, of all things. So interested, in fact, that that interest led her to begin getting connected with military strategists, began doing research with strategists while she was of high school age. And then colleges were pursuing her because she had developed this portfolio of this incredible passion and interest in this one area that made her really attractive to a lot of folks. The straight A student would go, I'm going to put this interest in tanks down because it doesn't align with anything I'm learning, and I'm going to focus on getting my grades. So essentially I push the things that I'm really curious about away, and instead focus on grades. I hope you're hearing that. It is a common problem, and most parents can't get their head around it because it's just too big of a shift. But absolutely in the 21st century, this is key. Which would you prefer for your child? Clear purpose for your life versus college degree or elite college degree? What I'm sensing here is a little bit of a pattern that there's a draw into this college as the the pathway to happiness. If your child has a purpose for their life, you will not need to block and tackle for them. They're going to be running full speed ahead. So caution. How well do you understand how technology is reshaping communication, work, and education? You're somewhat informed. Here's where I would love to help you get more informed, because if you're not clear about how technology is moving, then a lot of those questions that we've gone through before seem to start to make sense. Technology is changing everything, and if you're not ready for it, your child's going to get run over by it. Is your child's education complete? Does it cover all the areas that you feel they will need to be a successful adult? You say definitely yes. I'm going to challenge you on that. Respectfully, and as a friend, I'm going to challenge you on that. Would love to talk to you more about it. Because of the things we talked about already, I have some concerns. And then, again, the last one here is, does your child have an individual on paper, on purpose plan for learning? If the answer is no, that's actually issue number one. You got to build one, because the relationship between the parent and the educational path and the child in the educational path has to be local. It cannot be institutional in a 21st century that individual choices and individual interests are actually driving things now in a way that never did in the past. Okay, that's it. The last question was really about this social and emotional connectedness with peers and father. So this child sounds like there may be a little distance there. That would be where you start with the learning plan. And in fact, maybe this would be the first question. How do we create a plan to build connectedness with peers and her father? That is something that I have been doing with my kids. Not perfect, nothing ever is, but the plan at least gives you a target to shoot for. So I hope this helped. I hope you hear this in the way it was intended, which is a brother challenging you as iron sharpens iron. I'm going to actually say some things that might hurt in the hopes of alerting you to potential problems that I can see and foresee in the future. So with that, that's it for now. Let me tell you a little bit about who I am. You're welcome to turn this off if you know this, but so I've been in education for 25 years. I've served on the boards of 2 universities, a selective public and a private school. I've been on the board of 8 charter, hybrid, public, and private schools. I ran an education reform nonprofit. I ran for and thankfully lost a school board campaign for the 7th largest school district in the country. And I've helped give away over $500 million of philanthropy largely in areas of education and human services. And so these experiences have given me a bird's eye view of virtually every educational model that's out there. I've also been studying the tremendous implications of technology on the lives and the future of kids, specifically boys, but girls are not immune by any stretch. But I've been focusing on boys, specifically boys of color. There's no greater threat than this technological revolution in the mental health of your children, but also in their future lives. And unfortunately, most parents are just ignorant about what's coming for their kids. So my mission is to arm parents so they can be the most radically prepared advocates for their kids known to man, right? They are the gamers, the parents are the gamers, and they help their children learn how to do it themselves. So you have a 14 or 15-year-old young person who is responsible and able to lead themselves. That is my aim. And frankly, that's what you want, parent. You want to be free from worrying about your kid when they're 14, 15, 16 years old, because you've trained them in such a way that they are responsible and able to handle the adult demands that are coming at them at an earlier and earlier age. I hope that's making sense. So what I'm proposing here is that parents play a very different role than they have historically played in education. So no more passive parenting, no more letting institutions shape children, no more helicopter parenting either. No more shoring up at school board meetings and yelling and screaming. No more yelling at your child's teacher. No more yelling at your kids about their grades. What I'm talking about is as radical a transformation of the parent as the transformation of what's happening in our society as it relates to technology. This is what I've been doing with my own kids for the last 20 years on our own educational journey. We've done hundreds of learning plans, and they have learned in public, private, hybrid, homeschool, and self-directed learning models. And quite frankly, my kids are just different. And that's exactly the point. I'm here to make sure that school never interferes with a child's education. And I'm here to proclaim that normal is officially broken in education. If your child's education looks, feels, tastes, or smells like your first 18 years of life on this earth, then you are raising a train wreck in the 21st century. Normal's broken. And so from this point on, weird wins. You do not want a kid that looks like everybody else. You do not want them to compare themselves with everyone else. They are uniquely created, and you want them to think and behave in the ways that are aligned with their how they've been created. That's the key piece here. I hope this is not getting too long, but I want you to understand where I'm coming from, and so you know whether or not you want to work with me or not. If you want kids who don't consume for the sake of consumption, but kids that produce, that have curiosity, that have high integrity and empathy, they're curious and learning not because of grades, but because they want to learn. If that's what you're about, then I'm your man. So that's a bit of who I am. What else can I tell you? All my services are free. And so I thank you for those on Patreon who have helped to support this channel and this work. This is what I'm going to do until I'm put in the grave, trying to arm parents so they can help arm their kids for a world and a future that is changing so incredibly quick that it's actually frightening, and I'm in the business of it. So maybe that's enough for now. If you want to talk more, reach out to me on my website at mattcbarnes.com, and we can set the next step, which is a conversation. But you can let me know. We'll also set up some trainings and things like that will be group trainings. And the last thing I will add is this. If you're really interested or inspired by some of what you heard so far, then your next move is to contact a couple of your friends who might be interested in being in this journey with you. This journey is not one that you can do alone. You've got to work in a team. And so if that is one of the things, if you want to keep going on this, your first move is to contact your friends, maybe share this video with them and say, listen, I'd like to have a conversation with the 2 or 3 of us and Matt to figure out how we're going to start building a learning plan for our child to address some of these issues, or just to understand more of Matt's concerns and why. That'll be the next move. And so reach out to me if you'd like to. With that, that's a 19-minute response, and I hope that's helpful for you. And I wish you the very best, CeCe, as you shape your daughter. And look forward to talking with you more if you're interested. Take care. Good luck. We'll see you. If you reached out to me because you want your child to get great grades and test scores and go to great colleges, then please turn off the video right now, because I am not in that business. But I am in the business of helping parents learn how to produce thoughtful, creative, curious, lifelong learners. And make no mistake that parents, it starts with you. You are the key here. So if you're a parent who's more interested in producing a young man or woman of high character, then that's what I'm all about. We have a shortage of high character kids in our world, and that's what I'm trying to change. So I am personally tired of meeting young people who are in their early teens and maybe young, 10, 11, 12, or young teens or even older teens, heck, sometimes even in their 20s, who are more interested in consuming than producing, more interested in grades than in learning, more interested in entertainment than service to others. This is not the child's fault. We live in a culture that praises the superficial. So with that intro, that happy intro, if you're still interested, then let me react to the 2-minute child and family assessment that you completed on my website at mattcbarnes.com. At the end, I'll tell you a little bit more about who I am, but in the interest of time and this long intro so far, let's go ahead and get started. So you completed your assessment.